every time. After the three chimes, you always said it. And it was something. I really enjoyed that, but you had so much you did in church that you began to enjoy that. You couldn't wait till you were altar boy for that. Well, every boy in school was an altar boy. And you couldn't wait till your turn came around again, or at least I couldn't wait till my turn came around again. My mother, she was, I don't know how to blame Mom. She wanted me to be an altar boy. She wanted me to be a priest. I don't know. Oh, I had an uncle who went to seminary down in New Orleans, and 6 weeks later, here he come back, and I said, "You finished already?" And he said, "Yep." And I said, "Well, what church are you going to be in?" And he said, "None." And I said, "Why?" He said, "'Cause I'm not going to be a priest." I don't think he could handle the celibacy, which I don't think I could have handled. So that was the end of that. It was, my family was really strange though, because we were, we're a collection of different kinds of people, and that's
eclectic.
That really makes for odd people, really, because my grandfather was from the Cheyenne Nation, and my grandmother was, I don't know what she was, but I think she was Irish, I believe. But anyway, she was one of those out of wedlock things, and back in the day when that was a forbidden thing, And but my grandma she's a good person. She took care of me. She had to be a pretty good person. I had a grandmother that could holler from our front porch, and 6 blocks away in Summers Park, I could hear her. And I'd be dipping sand with my hip pockets trying to get home. Yes, indeed. And my grandpa never spoke a word unless you asked him something specific, and then he would say something. But other than that, he'd come home, Grandpa had one of the only pickup trucks in Kokomo at the time, owned by a black family. And I remember he would come home. Back in that day, they had a work program by Roosevelt, was called the WPA. Anyway, the WPA built 31, built all them highways up through Indiana. That was the WPA did that. And my grandpa would be out on the road, and he'd come home, and every night he'd pull in the backyard, not put the truck in the garage. He'd just pull it in the backyard and sit in the truck and drink his pint of whiskey every night. That he's something else. He'd come in the house and he'd say, "I'm home, Elsie." And she said, "You been drinking, ain't you?" And he said, "Well, you know I drink every night." And she said, "Well, one of these days you're going to come home and there ain't going to be no food." Oh, my. I can remember that. My grandmother used to make fudge, chocolate fudge. And she had a big chandelier up there that had a bowl in it. And she would hide it in there because there was no light bulbs in there, so it wouldn't melt. But when you turn the outside lights on, it made that darker inside. And I always knew where that candy was. And we on top of chairs and chairs on top of tables, and get up there and get a couple pieces of candy. Never take more than two. And we go out and eat the chocolate fudge. And my grandma would always say, I know you're stealing that fudge. One of these days I'm going to catch it. She never did catch it, but she thought she tried. We lived on a farm. You got to realize it. It was, everybody had a job. Everybody.
What was your job?
I milked 7 cows. My thumbs were built like that for a long time. I'm doing this. Yeah. We had 7 cows, and I had slop hogs every now and then. And that wasn't real cool. Of course, you did want to get in there with some of them hogs. They had we had a couple boars at the time. They would do you in if they caught you in there. They were really big. I remember when Grandpa sold the oldest one. I forget how much money he got out of that, but he got a lot more money than he normally would get out of it. He was Pop was pretty good salesman. My grandpa, I think I still got a picture of him at home. I do, don't I?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you don't have it, I do.
I don't.
The one with him and Kelly.
Huh?
The one with him and Kelly.
Oh, Buster.
No, not that grandpa.
Oh, okay.
My grandpa.
My grandpa, that was Buster.
Your great grandpa.
Oh.
Okay.
Mm. Yep. He was a strange man. I used to think he was big as this room. Come to find out he's shorter than me. Hmm. That's something that history doesn't, you don't hear about. Indians left reservations and came east and went to cities and became black. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yes. My grandpa was one of them.
But
And,
do you see what your son's doing right now?
Hmm?
You see what David's doing right now?
Yeah, probably.
He is preserving history,
Yeah, well.
and that's exactly why we have the Bible. That's why God had these authors
Mhm.
write the Bible, is to preserve. I mean,
Yeah,
because
that's a good idea, you know.
it was the
Yeah.
only way. It was the only way in that day and time to preserve history,
Right.
was to write it, to have
That's,
those who had walked with Jesus.
yeah, because I look at the Bible and, you know, Martin, Luke, John, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch the way it starts out, they all start out the same way.
The Synoptic Gospels. Yeah. You're right.
And when you look at it, you know, when I first looked at it, I just say, wait a minute, didn't I just read this back here? And I go back and read it, and yeah, it's exactly what it said, you know. And then I said, well, they're just copying each other, you know. Then you get farther into the text of the book, and you find out that they've got something else to say, you know.
That's because there were different kinds of witnesses.
Huh?
Some were eyewitnesses and some were just ear
Yeah.
witnesses.
Yeah, there's an amazing book that I read. It's called Four Gospels, One Jesus,
Mhm.
and you learn to. Have you read that
Yeah.
book? It's awesome, isn't it?
It really is. It's good. It's
Yeah,
from.
but-
I got a degree in history. It's a
Awesome.
good historical reference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
I read it.
but Matthew is writing to Jews, a predominantly Jewish
Jewish
audience.
audience.
Therefore, he points to a lot of the fulfillment of prophecy. You have a lot more emphasis on that because of his intended audience. When you get to Luke, Luke's audience is more of a Gentile audience, and therefore, you know, Luke really stresses more than any other gospel the humble aspects of Jesus' ministry. That Jesus came to, you know, to pick up those who were down and out. He came for the prostitutes, the tax collectors, in Luke you have Luke, you have those parables like the Good Samaritan, and you know the man was beaten and left in the road, and what do all the religious men do? They walk right by,
Passing by.
but then this Good Samaritan stops by, picks him up, puts him up in an inn, and really takes care of him. So you see a different flavor from each of the Gospels, but they're all telling the same story.
Yeah.
And that's the crucial event. They're all telling the story of the goodness of Jesus Christ.
Well, you know, the thing is, history is, you know, either verbally or written by man, you know, and he's going to put in there what he wants in there, you know, that's it. Now, most of them, I think, went truthfully. They did it truthfully. But a lot of them, you know, wanted to blow their horn and added, well, I did this too, you know.
Corinthians and yeah.
So what do you think about the resurrection of Jesus Christ? Do you think they made that up, or do you think they experienced that?
I think that's another one of history's things. In my mind, no, I don't believe it.
Really?
It's like people say, well, you know, wait a minute, he died on the cross. They hit him with that spear. He died. What you're telling me is, all of a sudden he comes back to life. Okay, that could be. But seeing the physicalness of death, I don't think so.
That's what makes it so much more. That's
Well,
what
yeah, it
that's
makes
the
it more
miraculous
dramatic.
part of it.
The powerful.
That's where the power
Dramatic
of God.
is what it makes it.
No,
yeah.
that's where the power of God is taking over through Himself.
Well, I'm not going. I don't argue with God. No.
Well,
See, you can say God said turn them cups upside down. Okay. I wouldn't argue with it. You know.
well, think about this, Carlos. If you guys had captured, a POW, and you guys had him, you know, is there any chance that he would be able to escape without you knowing about it?
No, not really.
Yeah, and see, the Romans wanted to make sure. They wanted to make absolute sure. And this is the Roman Empire, the most elite of the elite. And they wanted to make sure, absolute sure, that Jesus did not come out of that tomb.
Yeah, because their livelihood was at stake.
Everything
their
was
power
at
was
stake.
at stake.
And he made it out. So you know, if you consider the evidence plus all those who were testifying to the resurrection, 11 of the 12 were martyred. One was sawed in half. Another was crucified upside down. I don't know about you, but if I knew something was a lie, if I knew that I was going to be sawed in half, I might stop and say, you know what? Let me rethink my position.
That's
Well,
kind of where
I
you
think-
were.
The
I
mark.
think a lot of times people, you know, hang on to things that really going to get them killed and it really don't make a lot of sense. I'm not dying for something somebody said. I don't care what he said.
But see, Carlos,
Yeah.
they didn't just
But
say,
if,
they didn't just hear it, they experienced it. And that's why,
I ain't ever experienced
was there.
anything that's going to make me die for it. No.
and that's why they shared it.
Well, just like we talked about
I can see
seeing the Holy Ghost.
war. I can see it
Mhm.
because I understand it. I understand you either win or you lose, one way or the other. You live or you die, win or you lose. But I don't understand somebody telling me, well, I guess you're going to have to give up. No. See, because that means somebody's got a chance to torture me or shoot me or whatever without me having a chance to retaliate.
You know, Carlos, Jesus not only made it out of the tomb and and rose, but he also,
Well, see,
revealed
again,
himself
that
again.
somebody said that. Somebody wrote that.
somebody has to write
Wait.
the history because they saw it with their own eyes. I mean, there was
Well,
500
yeah.
eyewitnesses.
But the cool thing, Carlos, and you know, the cool thing is that, you know, you were talking about how important it is to see it for yourself
Yeah.
and how important it is to experience it for yourself. I can tell you, and you might say that's because you're a loony, you're a loony, Pastor. But Christ lives within me. I can, because I know how my selfish nature.
Mhm.
I know what my selfish nature would be willing to do